when we started when we moved out to the country, we started farming a little bit. We had no idea what we were doing. I'd like to say we have a great story that, we went off to Scotland and got married and we saw the beautiful Highland cows and that's how we fell in love with them. That's just not the case. We happened about them and just kind of came up by chance and we fell in love with them naturally. Now we've still only got Chewy, Bella, and then their baby Merida over there. But there's also something else. There's a monster in our pasture and it's not Chewy. So we didn't plan anything, as I mentioned. We just kind of came about everything by chance. We still have our beautiful Highlands. We love them dearly. And we were blessed this year with that beautiful baby Merida. And she's been an absolute, truly a blessing. And we still have our Kuni pigs. But we never had anything before that because we aren't really farmers by nature. We didn't grow up farming. We're just learning as we go day by day. And one thing that we never really took into account is how much food these animals actually need. So every year we're spending more and more money buying quality forage feed for them, being it hay and straw and grass and different types of products going into winter, because up here our winters are going to start. It looks green right now around me, but in a month's time this is all going to be brown. So that's going to be the end of September, beginning of October, and we're not going to be able to release the animals back out onto these fields to forage until probably about Mother's Day, which is mid-May. So that's a long window of time where you have to feed these very, very large animals a healthy quality diet. Now, being that is, now that we have an extra one this year with baby Merida, we start to have to think about what we're doing with our fields. This is just reclaimed farm field. We've never planted anything, we've never done anything, but we're starting to think that's what we've got to start getting to. A lot of this land has been disturbed. We've been out here picking a lot of the rocks. We have these big rock piles that you'll see, and there's rocks strewn throughout the rubble. So this doesn't look really anything different than maybe, say, the Highlands of Scotland. The only problem is in Manitoba, it's just not very high. So when we look at the landscape that's around me, this is the fields that we've got. We have 3 paddocks that are set up tentatively right now. We've got to run a few more wire before fall. And then come spring, we're going to release the animals out. We'll have 3 separate paddocks where they can graze and let one heal, let one grow back. The Highland cattle, they don't damage the fields whatsoever. They're wonderful animals. They actually give back with their waste products as long as it's kept in check and it's cleaned. But it's easy to take care of. They don't rip anything up. But the one thing we are starting to see, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's a monster in our pasture. And this monster, if not kept in check, it's going to be a real problem down the road. When you have a mixed field and it's just a random field of random grasses, as I say, we never really cultivated anything here. For Highland cattle, they're very, very easy to take care of. They don't need a specific type of forage. They just need a good quality grass mix. They'll eat the weeds, they'll eat almost anything that's going to grow out here. They'll strip shrubs and anything right down to the ground. And that's good. It makes it easier for me to buy products for them going through winter, so for a good quality feed to last them throughout the winter. Unlike, say, horse or sheep, which need very, very specific types of grasses and quality of grass, Highlands are really, really easy to maintain. Now, the monster in question is a certain type of plant, and this plant is a non-endemic plant. And what that means is this plant's not natively found here. It's a plant originally from Europe, and now this plant, honestly, you can find it all over Europe, you can find it all over Asia, you can find it all over Australia, and you can find it in every single province and territory in Canada and every single state in the continental United States. This plant is a massive, massive problem. And I just came about this plant yesterday by walking in the field, and I was like, what is that? Why is it here? So let's take a peek at this monster. So this is the plant that's in question. This is Cirsium vulgare. It's also known as the bull thistle or the spear thistle, and in some places it's called the common thistle. Now, why is this related to anything that we were talking about? Well, this plant in particular is a very famous thistle. This is the actual national flower of Scotland. So it's kind of unique, the fact that we've got Scottish Highland cattle, and we've got a nice little nod to their homeland with the Scottish thistle. Now this one looks pretty big, and it looks pretty armored. This plant, as I mentioned, heavily armored. The spines on this thing are just absolute violence. It looks like a weed with finishing nails sticking out all over its leaves. And none of the animals will eat this plant. Now this one looks pretty large, pretty impressive, and that's what caught my eye. But we actually have them growing all over the field. So as you see, they're actually all over my field. This is a European plant, as I mentioned. This is a very tall European biennial. And what a biennial is a plant that grows every 2 years. So what it does is it puts out all its massive growth the first, and then the next year it comes up in the springtime, and that's when it produces flowers and seeds. So as you see here, here's the flower. This is the maturing seed. This one is a finished flower that's turned into a seed pod, and there's millions and millions of seeds in here, and every single one of these, if it touches the ground, will form a new plant. And the problem with it is it's invasive. It likes disturbed land. So any land that we've torn up or moved, or the cows have dug up, or the pigs have dug up, is absolutely a haven for this species. It can grow to 7 feet tall. Now that's not, don't picture that cactus looking like plant being 7 feet tall, but the inflorescence growing up high above the plant. And it has a massive taproot that grows down almost 2 feet into the ground. So it's very challenging to eradicate out of a field. So as I mentioned, this species grows in really damaged, disturbed land. That means it's a ruderal species. Ruderal means species of plants that can grow in land that's been damaged. Now, damage doesn't mean ruined. Damage just means that, something's changed to the environment. But they're pretty established. Now, once you really start looking for them, they kind of stand out. There's one right there. There's one right there in front of the guinea fowl. There's another one right here in front of me. There's another one right here with all these mature seed pods. But eradication methods for this type of a plant are going to be a little bit challenging. I could bring out a product like a Roundup type product, and that would kill the plant. But the residuals of those, I'd be concerned about those type of products being in the soil, or if any one of the animals were to try, and maybe it might attract the animal to the plant. I don't really know. So they pose a little bit more challenges than just an average weed. Now, as mentioned, this is a ruderal species. It colonizes bare or disturbed or damaged ground, but it also really persists well in lands that have been heavily foraged. Now, the area that's behind those rocks where we were just walking, that is the last year's where all our older cooney pigs basically dug the entire thing up. And all of last year, it looked like that whole area had been tilled. So it's an absolute haven for this plant. And this plant also really loves nitrogen-rich soils. Nitrogen being the main component that's going to be derived from the waste products of these animals. This is definitely a heavily armored plant. And it's derived that, it's evolved that way because it's learned to capitalize. People don't think of plants the same ways they think of animals. But this plant has its own methods of protecting itself. And it's capitalizing on an area that's damaged. It's capitalizing on an area that has a lot of extra waste products or nitrogen-rich products. And it's finding a way to survive where other products or other plants may not. And to protect itself, it's evolved all this massive suit of armor. It's truly a monster in my pasture. So, I know it's just a weed, guys. It's just a weed growing in my pasture. May not seem that exciting, but hopefully when you take a little bit of a closer look, you look in and delve a little bit deeper, I hope that maybe you'll find it just as fascinating as I do. The plant kingdom has far more fascinating things even than the animal kingdom. We just have to actually take the time to look at them. I think it's pretty cool. I'm still going to get rid of it, but I think it's pretty cool. So with that, my friends, until next time, take care. We'll see ya.